Rise and shout. It's time for What's Trending.
Touchdown, Cody Epps. Ben Bywater on the interception. Tyler Batty with his first sack of the season.
What's Trending is presented by Tim Daly Ford, part of the Tim Daly Auto Group, serving Utah since 1968. Okay, we're going to get the magazines in the next couple of weeks and months, right? We're going to have the preseason All Big 12 teams officially, probably from the coaches and/or media. Athlon Sports is the first to release the preseason All Big 12 teams in their opinion. 8 Cougars made the cut. Here we go. On offense, Aiden Robbins on the second team, Cody Epps third team, Kingsley Suamati on the third team, Connor Pay on the fourth team. On defense, Tyler Batty, Ben Bywater, Micah Harper all on the fourth team. Special teams, Hobbs Nyberg, fourth team. I didn't know they'd go that deep to a fourth team, but there we are.
I like it.
Shep, what do you think of the first All Big 12 anything, which sounds great?
Yes.
All Big 12, it's happening.
There's more than exactly where everybody landed, just the fact that BYU was on the preseason All Big 12. The funniest part about this was I was not expecting this, because you get into a rhythm, and with BYU even being in the WCC for the last decade plus, you get into like, okay, well, we're getting close to basketball season, so I wonder who's on the preseason. You go through all these other sports that you're used to getting the preseason teams. It's been so long since we've seen this for BYU football that when I saw it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is a thing. This still happens. So there was this excitement, this rush of excitement when I saw it. Yeah, I will be honest with you, the one thing that really stood out to me that I really expected to be much higher was Kingsley Suamataia, higher than third team. That's probably one that maybe second team was probably what I thought, but we're talking about a guy here that right now is being talked about, granted, a year in advance, but it's for reasons that we all know because he's really, really good, being talked about as a first-round draft pick and maybe even a top 15 draft pick. So I was a bit surprised that Kingsley was just third team, but I'm still in the just happy to be here phase, so I'm not going to complain too much.
Are you going to be in that phase all year?
Possibly. There's a real chance.
We haven't cared about all independent anything for a long time. I think maybe the first year or two we were like, oh, this is cool. It's like us, Notre Dame, and like some other people.
Yeah.
We have not cared for a full decade about any all-conference anything relative to independence because there's like 5 or 6 teams, whatever. This now becomes exciting, more exciting, because it's not only a league, but it's a league that is Power 5, and we've waited for this moment for BYU. Is Aiden Robbins BYU's best offensive player? That's what Athlon is saying right here against the field. I'm assuming they go with 2 running backs on the first team, 2 on the second team. Is he a top 4 running back in the Big 12? I think that would be incredible, and that certainly sets BYU's offense up if that is the case. I would love to think that BYU has one of the top, if they go 3 per team, 9 receivers in the Big 12. If Cody Epps is a third-team guy, I'm with you on Kingsley Suamataia. If he is a first-round pick, we would hope he'd be on the top 2 teams.
Yep.
If you're going, one left tackle on the first team, another on the second team, maybe it's not common knowledge that he's moved to left tackle. Connor Pay on the fourth. Listen, BYU is going to be in a league where many of these guys, we're going to watch the NFL draft next year in a very different way, where we'll go, oh, yeah, that guy was awesome at Oklahoma State. That guy was awesome at TCU, that we maybe haven't watched before. And on defense, having 3 guys there, I like that too. I would love to have Eddie Heckard perhaps in the mix there as one of the top BYU players. But I love the idea that, Ben Bywater to me is probably BYU's best player at his position on the team at the moment. Hoping that Tyler Batty's awesome, that Isaiah Banya is awesome, that Micah Harper is awesome as well at safety. Hobbs Nyberg as a returner there, certainly. But when we're breaking down 4th team, special teams, maybe that's too much. But it's fun to see all Big 12 something, the individuals of BYU thriving. Offensively, BYU's really been good the last couple of years, obviously on the field, but also in the draft. So we'll see what this means. And we're going to we have not had this in 12 years, Shep, which is we care about another group of people in football in a different way. Like, we'd watch consistently with Boise State, kind of, because you play them every year, but kind of Utah and kind of Utah State. Every year, we're looking at everybody. Oh, so-and-so left. Like when who was it? What's his name? Tyler Dickinson or whatever from Michigan, Hunter Dickinson, transferred to Kansas. I go, oh, crap. He's going to Kansas.
Right.
Now we might play him. BYU might play him. It's just that context shapes the fandom in a new way in football, which is very exciting.
Yeah, the fun part about these, especially if it's not where you maybe had initially wanted or hoped to see them, is to then compare this at the end of the year where everybody, lands. And then you can see where, okay, well, this was the thought about this player before. This is how the season turned out. And I think that's kind of the fun part about it, is to kind of store these away, put it to the side, and then at the end of the year, see where everything pans out, see how accurate it was, who made teams that weren't on any of these lists, who had those seasons that nobody saw coming, all of that. And I'm with you. And we had, even in the WCC, obviously we paid attention to, Pepperdine and Gonzaga and St. Mary's and San Francisco, and so you get to learn. But it's different. It's different with football. It's different in terms of how much you really get into that specifically, and it's just something we haven't had for more than a decade. So to be back into that groove and being able to follow them like we used to with Wyoming and Air Force and Colorado State, all those schools, like those natural rivalries and how are they doing? And oh no, man, they did better than we did. Like all that stuff's back on the table now.
I love it. Okay, looking at last year's Big 12 teams, one quarterback, 2 running backs, a fullback, 3 receivers, a tight end, 5, maybe 6 O-line, 5 O-line. They go a little, they have 5 D linemen on the second team and 3 linebackers. So I don't know. We're running a 5-3-5 on the all Big 12 defense. All good. Going to be fun to watch that. Obviously, it's early, and there's going to be all kinds of projections that come out. But the Aiden Robbins second team one, that tells us a lot about what Athlon Sports thinks of Aiden Robbins. If he can be a top 4 running back in the Big 12, that is great news for Keaton Slovis and the BYU offense. And it says a lot about the expectation of the O-line. There's this narrative from Aaron Roderick that, hey, they're really good. And last year, I think that might have been the best O-line BYU's ever had, perhaps. Right. The metrics were really good. I would love to see the running game be awesome this year.
The interesting part about it is when the transfer portal began, the offensive line was a massive concern for me. When BYU lost the Barrington brothers.
Once you transfer, we mispronounce your name by 1 letter.
The Barrington
brothers are at Blaylor.
Yeah. So, I thought, oh no, this is a massive loss. BYU has rebounded very nicely to the point I am not concerned about the offensive line anymore.
Which is wild because BYU lost 3 of its 5 starters and 4 of the top 6.
But the guys that came in, Caleb Etienne, the guys that were in the program already that are returning, Kingsley, obviously we've talked a lot about him. That is now a position of strength, in my opinion. And a couple months ago, I was really concerned with the guys that BYU had lost. No longer am I concerned about the offensive line. So that speaks then to what you were talking about, and aiding a guy like Aiden Robbins at the running back position and the ground game in general.
Paul Miley from Utah, Waylon Lapuahu from Utah State, Ian Fitzgerald from Missouri State. Bunch of these guys. Jake Eichhorn from Weaver State. A lot of talent coming in that really bolster that group. And they're deep. Yeah. They might be the deepest position at BYU.
All right, let's stay with the Big 12 conversation. Friend of the program, Berry Tramel of the Oklahoman, reported that a Big 12 source told him that Colorado is ready to commit to joining the Big 12 soon. Would you like Colorado to come back to the Big 12?
Yeah, I think it's a natural fit. I don't think they ever really fit in the Pac-12. And I think it'd be fine. You'd have a travel partner out west with BYU. Certainly still far away, all things considered, but much closer than a lot of the other schools. I'd be fine with that. I don't know when that would happen, how many years it would take, if it'd be like in 25 or whatever.
What would Utah do without a rival, though?
Oh, my gosh, what would they do? Who cares? Oh, my gosh, who cares? Colorado in the Big 12 would be great. I think that'd be a good fit. Did they add a ton, competitively? No, because they've struggled.
They will. I believe in Coach Prime. This guy's
he'll be somewhere else in 3 years.
Oh, that's fine.
By the time Colorado gets into the Big 12, I don't even know if Deion Sanders would be the head coach at Colorado. But what it means is
Coach Prime.
Nice. Thank you. I don't know what this means for the Pac-12, but do they add San Diego State and then it's like, well, we're still at 10 when USC and UCLA move? Is this the first puzzle piece to potentially move? Also, this isn't the first time we've been told that someone might move soon. We were told Gonzaga might be in the Big 12 soon, and that was a few months ago from Stuart Mandel. That piece hasn't of the puzzle hasn't happened quite yet. So we'll see. There's a lot of fodder out there with UConn, San Diego State, Colorado now. Show me when it happens, and then we'll see what the domino effect is.
I do like the idea of it. If if the Big 12 is going to expand, I'm perfectly fine with the Big 12 as it is, even when Texas and Oklahoma leave. I'm okay if that's what they ultimately decide at 12 to stick with those 12. I'm fine.
Brett Yormark is not fine.
Well, look, and look,
right?
In Brett we trust, because look, he's done remarkable things so far. So whatever they decide to do, I trust his judgment based off of what we've seen so far. So I'm perfectly fine if they stay with the 12 once Texas and Oklahoma leave. But I do like the idea of, if Colorado's going to be the team, one of the teams that come in, I do like that. I like it for some of the reasons, even though travel partners really don't mean much anymore because all these conferences are so spread out anyway. And yeah, you have Cincinnati was talked about that it does help West Virginia, even though they're not right next to each other, they are close. So it gives you some sort of closeness with another program. Yes. Yeah. So for those reasons, I like it. I agree with you. They never felt like they were a fit in the Pac-12. The fact that they were in the Big 12 before, it would make for a very easy transition to go back. That doesn't always happen, where you spurn a conference and then they welcome you back. And it feels like that would be a school that everybody would be okay to bring back in. Yeah. It would be nice to be able to have the Denver market and still be able to pay attention to things that are going on there. So I do
mainly
like
for Jimmer,
and for Jimmer, because Jimmer obviously lives in Colorado. So yeah, I like the idea if it happens.
And would they be the only school added? Like, I don't see why the Big 12 would add one school.
Yeah.
I would add another school with them.
Colorado, Arizona? If you're going to go, are you going to from the Pac-12? Or is it Colorado, UConn? A lot of
Are
smoke
Arizona
around
and
UConn
Arizona State together in what they do? Because BYU and Utah were not. So perhaps there's a one-school thing there. Is it San Diego State? Do you just go and grab that Pacific time zone team that you've craved? Granted, you really want Oregon and Washington probably.
Right.
But if and until then, do you just go get those two? You take the next best option for the Pac-12, and you take an existing piece of the Pac-12. And now they are not only down to 9, but they don't have that expansive piece to add to 10. That makes sense, unless you're going to add a Fresno State or a UNLV or whatever.
SMU.
So that SMU. Yeah, SMU in the mix as well. But again, nothing's happened quite yet. Do we think something will happen before July 1st, by the way, given the TV contract thing with San Diego State needing to pay the Mountain West $17 million, but that goes to $51 million by July 1st?
I keep getting this feeling like it has to happen now, right? It has to happen soon, right? But nothing's happened to what you were saying.
But
you're
quickly.
right. But when there's a deadline and there's a financial implication to it, it's amazing how quickly decisions get made.
My understanding is if they don't, they'd have to wait until like 25 or something, or later.
That makes sense that we would see something, but the Pac-12's not going to do something. If
they're not going to do something.
Okay, we'll get into that.
They haven't yet.
If they don't like what they have, regardless of whether or not it's their only option or not.
Right.
They may drag their feet longer than what we've even seen.
Absolute mess right now. Our question